Good to see you.
Nice to hear that. Mike, first of all, it's a pleasure for our association to have you as our main speaker today. Since we first met a few years ago, you always have accepted every invitation that we made to you, and we appreciate that. I know that all the attendees know who Michael Munro is, but just to be all on the same page, let me tell you that we are about to listen to an outstanding professional in the compliance and sustainability field. He was the Chief Compliance Officer of Odebrecht, and I'm sure he has many experiences, personal and professional experiences, to share with us today.
I wanted to thank everybody for your time today. And I thought I would start off by mentioning that this suit I have on today, I actually purchased in Buenos Aires in November of 2019, the last time I was in your city. Without a doubt, it's a great city, great food, great clothes, and of course, great people. So again, it's an honor being here. As had been mentioned, I have worked in the area of compliance and sustainability for many, many years. Right out of university, I joined Dow Chemical, and Dow Chemical has a very large and important presence in Latin America as well as Argentina. So a long time ago, I won't say exactly how many years, but a long time ago, I had a number of opportunities to be working in Argentina. Now, because Dow Chemical is one of the largest, it was back then and still is, one of the largest chemical companies in the world, Dow was always very much focused on what I like to call the path of sustainability, or ESG. And it was extremely important to the company and still is, of course. On the environmental side, I think you all can imagine the potential impact to the environment of a chemical plant spill, of the waterways. Dow has been in business since the late 1800s, and there were major issues throughout the years in regards to the environment. When you move over to the safety, the people side, the social, clearly a chemical company is at the forefront of that. Dow actually had a facility that I worked at for a while, that it was estimated if there was a plant upset at that facility, hundreds of thousands of people could die within a matter of hours. So the issue of social, people, sustainability was absolutely key to the company. The company was also tried to be as transparent as it could, but at the same time, I would like to caution people as there is a strong movement into this area of ESG and transparency and sustainability, that at the same time, from a legal standpoint, I am a lawyer, companies do need to be careful. And it's easy to say that companies should just disclose everything that happens and every concerns they have, but you have to be thoughtful about that. Well, I was at Dow for a few years when in 2002, the Enron scandal hit. And at that point, companies really hadn't been that focused on compliance programs per se, but really overnight, I'm sure all of you have heard about the Enron issue. $75 billion of market cap was lost overnight. Shareholders lost $74 billion. The employees lost billions and billions of their pension. Their entire pension was completely wiped out. Tens of thousands of employees lost their jobs. And the ripple effect was huge. I don't know if you know, but back then there wasn't the big four. There was actually the big six. And prior to that, I'm not really sure my age, it was the big eight, but there was the big six. One of the big six was an accounting firm called Arthur Andersen. Arthur Andersen, a huge global accounting firm, the likes of PwC and KPMG, disintegrated. got completely wiped out because of the Enron scandal. But what that brought about is something that I would like to call the path of compliance. So for a long time, companies were on the path of sustainability, talking a lot about environmental and social issues. But after Enron, there started to be a movement to what I would call the path of compliance. There were new laws. Sarbanes-Oxley came into place. Other regulations, anti-bribery laws. There really was a focus on companies putting in place systems, processes, and really just global efforts to emphasize the importance of doing business with integrity. So that was just a great thing. There were lots of conferences. This was back in 2005, 2006, lots of focus there. But really what got the whole area of compliance programs, and again, I would say that the path of compliance moving most broadly were the corruption scandals, the bribery scandals that started to hit in 2007. I left Dow Chemical in 2006 and joined Baker Hughes Oil and Gas. The reason for that, to be honest, is I saw this whole area of compliance as extremely significant and something that I felt was going to have a huge impact on business. I joined Baker Hughes Oil and Gas. They were in the middle of a very large corruption investigation by the US DOJ. Ultimately, they settled for paying bribes in 3 different countries. And they settled at that time, and this was 2007, about April 2007, for the huge sum of $44 million. And everyone at that time thought, wow, this is a big issue. This is going to be significant. But I think we all recognize how quickly things changed. Within a year of Baker Hughes's largest settlement of $44 million, Siemens came out with a settlement of close to $1 billion in fines paid. Probably many of you do know that the Siemens issue, the main issue, was connected to Argentina. And so there's, very, very difficult for the company. But the bottom line is, since that point, there has been a major focus on developing and implementing what you all are aware of as effective compliance programs, or compliance programs with adequate procedures, or whatever the compliance programs are described by the local law. After Baker Hughes, I joined Transocean Offshore. It's actually the largest offshore drilling company in the world. We operated in 40 countries, had 140 rigs around the world, a very high risk business. They were under investigation also for bribery in 6 different countries. They had absolutely no compliance program whatsoever. I was brought in to build one. Good news was the path was clear. What was required for a company to have a good, effective compliance program really at that time had already been standardized. So I was able to, in relatively short order, implement a very effective global compliance program. But in the middle of that, the BP Transocean Deepwater Horizon incident occurred in the Gulf of Mexico. Probably the largest environmental disaster in the world. 11 of our employees, Transocean employees, were killed instantly in the inferno. The environmental damage to the Gulf of Mexico, we all know, was huge, and the costs to the companies were, of course, in the billions. At that point, Transocean was able to enter into a settlement with the US government and stay in business. To be honest, most people did not think Transocean was going to be able to stay in business. After 3 years of negotiations, we entered into a settlement. And it was based on that settlement, as well as a settlement that we had entered into 2 years prior with the US DOJ on the corruption issues, that it became clear to me that there really was a convergence. There really were similarities between the areas of compliance and the requirements there, as well as sustainability. In particular, when you're talking environment, safety, there were real similarities. For example, under the corruption plea that Transocean made, we had hundreds of obligations. We had to demonstrate that we were complying with all the requirements of an effective compliance program as defined by the US sentencing guidelines. We had reporting obligations, we had training obligations, we had tracking obligations. We had to get all this information in an organized way and present it to the United States Department of Justice and SEC to demonstrate that we are in compliance. Very similar on the Deepwater Horizon. We had hundreds and hundreds of obligations, as you can imagine. We had a consent decree with the Department of Justice. We had 4 other agreements. We had a very significant agreement with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. And all of those issues were surrounding environmental and safety and operational type compliance. But the process was the same. You had to understand what the requirements were. You had to put in place ability to monitor, to track, to test, and to report all of these obligations under the Transocean Deepwater Horizon agreement settlement, as well as under its bribery-related settlement. Very, very similar. And what I did in particular, as you can imagine, the significance of the Deepwater Horizon settlement is I put together a team of individuals from different functions. And of course, you had a lawyer, me, I'm an attorney. We had somebody from auditing who was part of the lead team. We had somebody from operations with a strong sustainability background who really understood the environmental and the safety side. He was part of the team. And then we had a project management person. That team was able to manage, again, really thousands of individual obligations, a 5-year settlement agreement with 4 different agencies of the US government with absolute flying colors, no problems whatsoever. In fact, Transocean, we did so well in our compliance, the significant EPA agreement that I mentioned, they let us out of that agreement a year early, something that was completely unheard of. And again, that was because we had it structured properly and we had the right people involved. Subsequent to Transocean, I joined a global law firm, Norton Rose Fulbright. I was only with them for 6 months when I was asked to join Odebrecht Engineering Construction as their first chief compliance officer. I joined Odebrecht in May 2016. At that point, Marcelo Odebrecht was still in jail. Emilio, his father, had 2 months prior made the public declaration that Odebrecht was going to be transparent, was going to openly address its issues of corruption. And so they brought me into the engineering company, which really was the main company that was involved in a lot of these issues to develop. They had none compliance program. Well, they had some training. They had a code of conduct, but other than that, they did not have a global compliance program. And when I joined, they were operating in 22 countries, 200,000 employees. Just Odebrecht, just huge and really a fantastic company in many respects. One of my first priorities was to put together, as I did at Transocean, a core team of people to manage these significant issues. And who did I choose? on my team, I had two of the top sustainability people at Odebrecht. These individuals were in charge and had been in charge of the Odebrecht sustainability effort, its efforts in environmental compliance, its social efforts. Odebrecht, personally, at least companies that I worked for, it really was second to none in working in countries and developing local people into high-level positions. They were very much focused on taking care of the communities. They would build these dams, huge $5 billion dams in Angola and other places, displace a lot of people. They were always focused on treating those people right, moving them into just great living environments and working with the governments to make sure what they did was correct. So I selected two of the top sustainability people to be part of my compliance team. I must admit, some people were saying, well, why not lawyers? Well, I did get a lawyer. We did have ongoing investigations. So another individual that was part of my team was an outstanding attorney who had a detective and investigation experience. In addition, I had an auditor part of my team. He had auditing as well as compliance experience, just an outstanding individual. And then I had a compliance professional, an individual who had been working in the compliance area on training and those types of things. And that was my core team that we put together in less than 6 months. With that team, we were unbelievably successful in putting together what I believe was an absolute world-class compliance program. Now, no compliance program is perfect, and every compliance program you need to improve. And yes, there's been a number of improvements, as there should be, over the years, because of areas that they thought should be improved, or because the compliance monitors suggested that there be improvements. But the base program that we put in place is still there today. In addition, the current Chief Compliance Officer of Odebrecht Engineering Construction is one of those sustainability people that we had put in place to be part of my team. That there was such a correlation between the efforts that had been made and that are made in the area of environmental compliance and tracking and reporting, in the area of safety compliance, in the area of social issues, just very, very similar. Finally, after that, what I decided to do was start my own firm, a GCMR, and that is what I'm doing today. And what we are doing is focusing on pulling these issues together, is focusing on ensuring that people learn from the past, but importantly, figure out how to do things better in the future. I think we all would agree that anti-bribery issues and activities are today still very much needed. I think we all would agree that the area of sustainability and ESG is becoming more and more important to companies around the world. Just in the past year and a half, and even through the pandemic, there has been major movement in the area of ESG. What people finally figured out, and this was within the past year, I would say, is that there really was, and there is today, because it's actually continuing, a block to effective ESG compliance in reporting. And that is because there are so many different rating agencies, criteria that's used, really complicated ways to address the areas of environmental, social, people, and governance. There's just not consistency. Where in the path of compliance, almost immediately, there was a map, a book that showed companies how they needed to build a very good, effective compliance program. And so you just follow those elements. All the laws that were passed, the new laws in the UK Bribery Act and Brazil Clean Company Act and the Argentinian Act, all the anti-bribery laws all use the same elements and criteria. It's the same. The ESG, it's not. There is a lot of different views. There are a lot of different metrics. And because of that, there's hesitation by companies, by global companies, about really jumping into this area, because which should they report on? Should it be the GRI standards? Should it be the SASB standards? Should it be the ISS standards? What standards do you report on? What standards do you track? There's a big issue. And at the same time, because of that uncertainty, confusion, and the fact that many companies have not yet truly jumped in to this ESG area of reporting and compliance, it's a great opportunity for people like us. It's an opportunity for people like us to use our skill sets, to use all the things that we've been doing over the years when it comes to training, when it comes to understanding. We have to understand the complex laws. When it comes to organizing material, when it comes to reporting, when it comes to having your program audited, verifying that your data is accurate. All of these things that we have been doing fit perfectly in the space of ESG compliance in reporting. If you go out today and start taking a look, you can do a job search for LinkedIn, on LinkedIn. Just within the past 4 to 5 months, there's more and more positions opening up. And there's high-level VP positions of ESG that have recently come up. PwC, obviously most of you know PwC, the global accounting firm in the US. Out there today, they're hiring 15 ESG directors and probably more. I just kind of glanced through. So this is a huge area of need. It's a huge area of growth. And I don't know, and I don't think anyone knows who's ultimately going to manage this. It's going to have to be managed. There's going to have to be somebody some position that is accountable, responsible to make sure this happens. I do know companies that have already appointed their CCO, their Chief Compliance Officer, to manage their ESG space. I know companies that have brought in a high-level sustainability person. It's just unclear. But what is clear is this is an extremely important area for companies and really for the world, because we know the impact. So with that, I think all of this shows that we are in the right place. We're talking about the right things. I again thank you for your time. COVID, without a doubt, has temporarily wreaked havoc on really our way of life and on our families.
Mike,
sorry.
Thank you very much for your.
Just want to say good news is that things are getting better. Where I'm at, Texas, everything really is opened up. And so I'm confident that for all of us, things will get better and we'll be able to move ahead.
It's nice to hear that, Mike. I really want to thank you. It's always interesting to listen to you. And I have one last question. We have many compliance officers in the audience, and I assume they are asking, what would be your recommendation for a compliance officer that has to design or implement a compliance program in the company? What would be your recommendation for them?
As a compliance officer, the first thing I would do is pull somebody into your team that knows the other areas that you may not know. Again, some compliance officers have come with background and experience in environmental and other areas. Most have not. Most are lawyers, financial people. So the first thing I would suggest is to get that expertise within your team, because it's going to be extremely important for you to get up to speed in that area and to understand what your company is already doing in the area of sustainability and ESG.
That's great. Thank you very much for joining today, Mike. It's always a pleasure to have you as our speaker. And I hope to see you soon in person, I hope. And thank you very much.